The so some of you had to explode. I don't know what was going on and why some of you couldn't trim out the centerpieces to yours. It's probably just something silly with, you know, whether or not it was grouped or joined or what particular type of surface it is. I could figure it out if I dug into it long enough. But ultimately, what you do need to know is that it's okay to just explode it, which is the solution that I gave to all of you. And for those of you who haven't exploded it yet, go ahead and explode it so that you can individually select each of these panels. So, oh, also, I accidentally deleted that, but I do want to keep it just for reference. You don't necessarily have to, because you can sort of figure it out, but I'm going to keep one for reference. So all you guys missed who just walked in, it's just explode. So we're going to explode this so that we can have individually selectable panels like this. Okay, so what we want to do, there are a couple of different ways of doing this. We want to, it's called Orient3Pt, and we're going to orient each of these surfaces to remap it into three-dimensional space by establishing the x and y coordinates with 3 points. It's pretty simple. So taking a look at how it actually set this thing up, if you look sort of at the bottom side of your cube, you can kind of begin to figure out which point is which. And if you kept your index numbers, you'll really be able to tell which point is which. So you see the 0 here? The 0 is obviously the same as your flattened 0. So that's why the labels are very, very significant. But if you look at the pattern that I have here, so let me group those and slide them back over top of my pattern, the 0 is facing the north direction in plan, but in the orientation where my model was when I created it, it's on the south side. So the weird thing about using unroll is that it tends to kind of make up its own mind about what's the best way to unroll it. That's the downside. You can't really control where it's going to unroll. So also, something to be aware of, if you really need to play around with which surfaces are located where, I can rotate this. See how this has a number 3 and that has a number 3? And you don't have to follow along. Don't do this. I just want to show you it. If I rotated it, I can go from here to there and to there, and you'll see that that matches. So that's significant because one of our options here is to actually put our cube on its original base and then just start flipping the surfaces back into its folded position. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's start with how do you do it panel by panel, and then I'll show you the refolding format for that. So panel by panel, let's start with, let's see. So this front side, the front side here for me, if I start wheeling this thing around, is the surface that's bound by 0, 1, 2, and 3. You guys see that? So 0, 1, 2, and 3 happens to be the surface that I just moved. So that tells us something actually that's very significant. It tells us that if I look at where the 0 position is and the 0 position is there, it tells me that this whole thing is the outer shell of my, basically, let me show you it this way actually. So if I take this thing and put it on top of my model now, the reason it's upside down is because it's on the opposite side. This is not that surface. It's this one, right? So that's the difference there. So it has to be essentially rotated and then folded back into place. So I'll take, well, Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, all right, let's do it this way. Never mind. So I'm going to actually just pick 3 points on this surface and then pick, in the same order, 3 points on the surface that it needs to go on. So let's take a look at where that is. If we go to, I forget where it is in the menus.
And there is no way to label your boxes that like
Afterwards?
Yeah, afterwards.
No, you might need to do it again. Just make sure your camera is in the same position, because if you kind of switch positions, sometimes it doesn't do it the same. So let me do unroll surface here. Oh, that one did it the same. If you don't move your model, maybe it will be the same. Try it out.
And then you just degroup it so that you have the numbers and you can just slide the numbers to wherever your polygon is.
Yeah. Yeah, so I made these a separate group. You can slide them on and off. All right, let me get back to what I was doing. I transform maybe? Yeah. All right, so under the transform menu, orient 3 points. Or you could just type in Orient3Pt. So what you have to do is you select the object that you want to orient and hit enter. And it says reference point 1. It'll ask you for 1, 2, and 3. So I'm going to start down here, and I'm going to say this point, and then reference point 2 here, and reference point 3 up there. And then it says target point 1. It'll do the same thing. So if you look over here, I went from the left side of 0 to the right side of 0 to the top side of 1. So I'm going to put it back over here on this cube. I'm going to go from here to there to there. So it brought it right back up into place. So if I remove that, this actually lives in 3-dimensional space exactly where it was on the original cube. It's pretty powerful, huh? So we do the same thing with each of the other surfaces, and we begin to map it out. So now I'm looking at 10, 11, 8, and 3, which is this one over here. So I do orient 3 point, select this surface, and so this one starts to get a little dicey now because I'm going around the cube. So I'm actually connecting where the 3 surface was. See how it's over here? That's where the 3 is. There it is. That's where the 3 is, up there. So for me, I think, let's see here. I'm going to go from this corner to that corner to the opposite corner over the 10. And that, you need to be clever about how you're selecting it, right? You need to really pay attention. That is this point on the 3, right? The opposite side from the 10, the far side of the 3 edge, to here, to there. I put it on the wrong cube, actually, but let me just move it into place. I'll select it and do the move command, and I'm going to go from this point to that point, and there it is in 3D. Okay? So here's what I'd like to see you do before we move on to the other method. I'd like to see you replace or do an orient 3 point on 2 of your skewed surfaces. By skewed, I mean that it doesn't actually sit in any particular axis. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? Using that method.
Numbers again?
Huh?
How do you get the numbers?
When you do your unroll, so let me go back here. If I select my cube and I do unroll, make sure labels equals yes.